A very good afternoon, everyone. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. Thank you very much for inviting me to give the sharing. I will start with a very short introduction of myself. My name is Lim Kok Yoong. I'm the Dean and also the Senior Lecturers in the Faculty of Creative Multimedia University in Malaysia. We are based in a city called Cyberjaya, funded by a telco company in Malaysia called Telekom Malaysia, in short, TM. Cyberjaya is comparable to Digital Media City in Seoul, in Mokpo, right? It's something like that. It's a new region funded by the government. There's a lot of startup tech company in this city. My background in the degree was actually in digital media. I have a Master of Arts in Fine Art, and I did my PhD in media engineering in Songsu University in Korea. The lab that I'm running right now for the postgraduate program is called MALL, M-A-L-L. It stands for Media Art Living Laboratory. Is basically based on the research concept where we adopt open innovative system. Our aim is to, use a very radical open structure to engage not only the researcher, but also the community living in Cyberjaya to develop and co-create research projects. So with a public, private, and people partnership in mind. All right, so our agenda is co-creation, exploration, experimentation, evaluations, right? This is a picture of our lab. And we have a special SIG, special interest group called Aesthetic Media Special Interest Group. That's where we have all the researchers to come and meet on monthly basis to do some sharing on technology as well as their research projects. From time to time, we also invite practitioner artists, media artists from overseas to actually come and do a short-term residency and share with our students as well as our colleague in Multimedia University. Before I go into to deliver my topic on moving city, just to give you a bit more insights in terms of the kind of research that I'm doing. A lot of my projects are revolving around locative media project, not exactly Metaverse. We have a small department called virtual reality departments at the undergraduate level, but it's a very small programs and it's very industry oriented where the students are trained to develop VR projects, AR projects for industry purposes, especially the creative industry, right? In terms of research, this is the kind of research projects I'm doing. With my groups, we have done an emotional mapping of Cyberjaya, where we hook up the participants with a BCI, brain-computer interface, to capture their emotional responses towards places in physical reality. We collect the data like temperature data, body temperature, their brain activities, and we come back and do a bit of analysis of the data, and we create a visualizations on a virtual map to show how the emotional reactions of the participant change as they travel to place. All right. Some of my personal projects are like data visualizations, tracking the movement of people in a certain places in the schools, in the university, and visualize as artwork. Right. This is another experimental project where I run back-end programs to collect my GPS data on an interval basis, and when it comes to the end of the year, I visualize it and turn it into experimental visual work. Lately, I've been working with one master student. His name is Vijay Fong. And we create this project called The Sculpture Does Not Exist Anymore. All right. So in this particular project, our study is basically using AR, augmented reality, to reenact or reconstruct cultural monuments that has been demolished or destroyed. Yeah, so we are looking at the intersections between art, culture, heritage preservations, and augmented reality, as well as locative media. So as you can see right now, a lot of my emphasis are in my research directions actually focus on physical locality, right, with the actual and real-time GPS data. So in this project particularly, we are focusing on one public sculpture that's called the Lunar Peak that has been demolished by the local municipal council in 2016. So the monument or the sculpture is gone. So what we are doing is we're trying to recreate and reenact all these cultural artifacts, monuments, and sculpture through 3D modeling technology, put it into AR, and is placed in the exact same location where it was situated before. So we emphasize not on a representational space like a metaverse or a VR, but we emphasize on actual location. All right, so of course we need to do some site recce or a few studies to study the actual conditions of the environment itself, including taking the directions, sun conditions, and so on and so forth. So using Unity with the GPS functions on the Android phones plus AR foundations for Unity, we develop programs where we can place 3D objects in the physical location. I'll play a video of the projects. So this is the condition of the sites right now, because the local government, they want to redevelop or rejuvenate this space to serve a different purpose. It used to be the locations where the monument or the sculpture, the public sculpture or installations was located. All right. So in order for the audience or the user to experience the work, they cannot experience the work in a representational VR environment. They have to run the apps and within the approximate parameter of the location. Yeah, meaning they have to travel to the space in order for them to experience the AR augmented reality content. Okay, so my topics today, it's I add another subtext here besides a moving city. Now the topic of my lecture today, or a seminar, is knowing your place in the moving city. I think that the metaverse is often imagined as a way to manufacture immersive digital space for all kind of human activity, including business, retail, educations, as well as other human social activities. It is a manifesto, yeah, directed towards provoking a new actions and way of thinking about the possibility of living in another world. But this is all manufactured or fabricated, right? So here, I'm building on a Ben Russell's manifesto in 1999, which is a very influential manifesto that discussed about locations-aware technology at the turn of the last century. And this underscore a performative movement. Performative movements means you need to perform Yeah, it's not using mouse and a keyboard, but you need to perform the action yourself, right? To make a statement about who we are, where we live, and how we exist in the world. So in my lectures, I would like to offer a slightly different view about metaverse. First, by criticizing the propositions of a cyber utopian that circulated around the virtual world that can transcend space-time, meaning we can just sit in front of the computer and we can transcend our body and travel to another space or time. Yeah, but I believe there's a bit of a shortcoming because at the end of the day, we're still living in a real world, yeah, where we need to maintain our bodily functions. All right. So it's just a momentary escapade to exceed the reality and go to metaverse for a while. Yeah. We will still have to come back to the physical reality. So I think the world is still open to new possibilities and unforeseen development. This is where we need to come to make a decision. It's not a matter of choosing whether it's a metaverse or reality, but what would be the best conditions for us to move in the future. All right. And I believe towards the future, we need to point to another iterations or another pillar of metaverse that involve the integrations or the combinations between virtual as well as physical space. Right, looking at our city on the move now, our city is constantly moving. It's an active city. Yeah. These factors, the 6 factors here, affect the rapid development and movement in the city in the 21st century, primarily with the rise of global mobility. All right. So a lot of our devices for metaverse, to use it as an access point to the portal of metaverse is called mobile device. Yeah, that means we are moving, we are mobile. There is movement and locations related to all this technology right now. Okay, so number 1, mobile process of globalization. Second, a rapid telecommunication and transportations development that allows people to move. Yeah, mobile devices become smaller and smaller. Right, we don't have to sit in front of the computer, but we can travel, and at the same time, yeah, being given the options to access another world in the virtual reality. Urban mobile lifestyles with all these smaller mobile devices, it push people, right, for mobile communication as well as traveling. And with the development of the bigger infrastructure like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and all range of radio frequency that allows us seamless network connections at all time. Yeah, so you walk out from your office and your home at any point of time, you can connect to Wi-Fi. All right, you can access the portal to whether you call it a virtual reality or the metaverse. You always have the options of logging in and logging out. All right, and most importantly, with the consumer development of GPS for precise locating and GIS, it allows us to know our positions at any point of time. Yeah, anytime you want to know your coordinates, you can just check your Google Map, right? So location awareness becomes more ubiquitous with all this infrastructural development and the global connectedness in the 21st century. So I don't see there's any way that we can escape from physical reality without understanding the conditions of our movement and existence in real place. Of course, as we enter the space age, with the Soviet Union launched the first satellite Sputnik in 1957, it gives us a completely new perspective about our planetary system, yeah, by turning the lens back to the Earth. So the satellite allows us to see the Earth as well as all the activities that's happening on the Earth right now. So with this remote sensing technology and space imaging technology, it gives us a new opportunity to explore our space. just using this as an as a case studies. This is a media artist. His name, a Brazilian media artist. His name is Eduardo Kak. What he did was he did a performance, and using his performance as a symbolic gesture, suggesting an embodiment of a bio-cybernetic self. Yeah, turning himself in a cybernetic organism, he implant a tracking device onto his leg, and it allows him to track himself all the time. So using this as a symbol to suggest that, you know, we can know our locations right now, and we need to know where we live. So with all these satellite and spatial technologies, all these are different trajectories of development that brings about the awareness of locations, yeah, in different practice. So this gives us an unprecedented degree of self-consciousness in time. And that's why all the medias develop from still to motion, all right? And human has always been on mobile. Yeah, we are always in movement. And what drives man on the move are depending on the where the resource are available, right? So this is a map showing how the movement or the mobility of human DNA migrations, yeah, by tracking the DNA or analyzing the DNA, we sort of come up with a map that shows we have been moving for many million years on the Earth. So right now with the internet undersea cable, what is happening right now is a new spatializations that incorporates politics, infrastructure, culture that reconfigure our mobility in the city, yeah, or society, if not on the Earth. So we need to, it's no longer about, you know, physical movement from one region to another to hunt for food, all right, or hunt for other resources. But right now, we are in a new condition or a new world where new type of movements are enacted. So this is a very interesting and important time for us to study and examine how do we perform movement right now. Yeah, if not traveling physically from Malaysia to Korea, for example, we can do telepresence meeting right now. So what is this kind of, what is this phenomenon? What is this? How do we call this kind of movement? Yeah, our body is not traveling, but our mind and consciousness is traveling, right? So, but at the same time, Metaverse depends on VR technology, and this places some limitation on its development for wide-scale adoptions, right? Can all the people enter Metaverse right now with the current development as well as the accessibility to the VR technology? What about other people who don't have access to VR technology, all right, or HMD? Right? Does it mean they are excluded from this new world that we are building? So many of the Metaverse project consists of activities where a relatively selected few would have access, or maybe only a certain professional class in the society that is generally progressive, democratic, and predominantly urban and technologically literate community would be able to engage in Metaverse activity. A lot of people still cannot, right? And also not to forget the wheel of Metaverse is also quite anthropocentric, meaning it's only focused on human, all right? And there are other agency of movement that's also living in the world, including non-human entity like animals, you know, other species, plants, and so on. That's also movement. That's also moving in the earth. right? So what is happening right now is it's bringing us to a concept purported by a scholar named Benjamin Bratton. He actually called it the stack, meaning our Earth, we have many stack or many layers of reality, yeah, where different activity is happening at different layer at different times. We have physical reality, we have and also augmented reality that's happening on Metaverse or Earth 2.0. All right, so thinking about the function of human society right now with all this new development in the 21st century, the theorist John Urey put forward these mobility paradigms, right? In this idea, he says the modern social phenomenon has come to be dominated by mobile culture, right? Typified or exemplified by the logistic or the movement of people, goods, informations, and ideas. So what is happening right now, in my PhD thesis, I actually predict a phenomenon of post-virtual geophilia, meaning people are slowly coming back to Earth, yeah, because they are tired of virtual reality or the cybernetics activities. But what is happening, interestingly, because we are entering a pandemic and everything stops. So maybe we have a pause or a momentarily frozen moments where we have to rely on virtual activities. But when all these are over, we will probably come back to the reality again. So in these mobility paradigms, he explained the 4 types of movement or mobility: corporeal mobility, physical movement of objects, imaginative mobility, virtual mobility, and they are all equally important, right? Corporeal mobility means the movement of the people. Physical movement mobility means objects, like things that you order, yeah, your food, your parcel, your mail, and so on. Imaginative mobility starts from mass media like radio, televisions. We can imagine, our mind can travel. While we are watching a Western movie, for example, our mind can travel to Western America. Virtual mobility is relatively new. There's making reference to all this mediated communication taking place in complex network community like a metaverse. All right. But right now, imaginative mobility and virtual mobility, they are used interchangeably. So what is happening right now in 21st century, it's we are in a collective consciousness of movement as well as location awareness, whether you are in the reality or in the metaverse reality. Yeah. Either way, you are still moving, whether imaginative moving or physically moving. So therefore, our presence is becoming even more complex. It's not only about here, but it's also there in the metaverse. It's also from here to there, or from there to here, because of all these post-virtual activities or post-internet activities, where we can bring back, let's say, a virtual objects. It can be printed, 3D printed, and bring it back to the physical reality. There's also being here and there everywhere with all these distributed sensors and agency that allows us to detect different data and information. Just to put it in the diagrams, being there, yeah, if you look at the black dots, that is where we are right now. If you can use that to define here in a physical reality, and the world within the range means if you open your hands and things that you can touch, those are the world within your human perceptions. Yeah. But with technology, especially new media, we can extend the perceptions a little bit further. For example, radio and television, right? And right now, with all this network technology, like LAN network, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, infrared, and so on, we travel further and further and further into the cyber world, or what we call the metaverse, right? So we are facing unexpected new entities of different types of beings. Together with the sensors and extension of all the sensors, we are not only just moving away, but things are also moving to us. So for example, remote sensors in this project by Usman Haque, he's using remote sensor to pick up all this weather data. And in the physical, same location as well, you have an augmented layer of visualizations of the weather data in real time at the same place. So what kind of conditions, what kind of beings are we living at the moment? Of course, these are all the projects done by scientists in artists in collaborations with scientists and maybe technologists, but these are interesting enough to make us think about a future of a world where physical and virtual will be combined. Right. I'm pretty sure every one of you will be very familiar with a project like this developed by MIT's, where we can touch objects right now telematically. All right. Another important concept for us to think about, it's also the scale of human presence at micro level, meso level, as well as macro level. Micro level means the way we think about our presence and existence, in imaginative way. So for metaverse to function, it very much depends on our micro consciousness. If you believe living in a meta universe, it's all about imaginations. But at the same times, there are times where you have to log off from the virtual reality and back to your daily life, to eat, to socialize with people, to drive, to go to other places, right? So here I'm just proposing a new way for us to function in a condition like this, where it's not exclusively physical reality or metaverse or virtual reality, but it is sort of a continuous perceptual motor loop, which is called autopoiesis, where you are constantly being fed by informations from your medium to give you multisensory, to give you a sense of presence where you are right now, whether you are in the reality or in the virtual reality, or it can be a mixed reality. And at the same time, you are also living in your daily physical activity on the earth. Because a body without an environment is like a brain without a body. We would not function in that way. All right. So I think this is already happening. A hybrid or a hybrid or the mixed reality world, where we are constantly able to access augmented content in physical reality. Yeah. Looking at examples of the famous Pokemon Go games, where people are being mobilized to different locations to access the correlated, to access or to capture the monster in the correlated coordinates in the virtual worlds. Yeah, this is probably going to be the world that we will be living in the future, not exclusively VR or physical, but a combination of both. Right. So a related research in the future for us to embark on is probably on environmental, not to forget ecological, spatial design in physical space as well as virtual space, wearable technology that constantly measuring our bodily as well as biological performance, artificial intelligence, as well as mixed reality. Right. So beside knowing how our what is actually happening on the physical world, perhaps you also need to have a measurement of both the world as well as the virtual world in terms of the activities that's going on. So in the back to Ben Russell manifesto in 1999, again, he's actually talking about the social implications of a location-aware device, where these devices are conceived as a form of resistance and autonomous social organizations to face the state-sponsored cartography. But what is actually happening right now in our current context is the open source. Yeah. Now, with all this open source falls into the hands of everyone, it gives us the ability to shape, organize, as well as to understand our real space. Professor Lim, how much time do I have now? How much time do I have?
Can you, okay, you have roughly 10 minutes?
10 minutes, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I will wrap it up as soon as possible.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so again, the manifesto is arguing for a way of living from inside to outside, away from a private space of home, from the computer screen to recolonizations of the real world, into a world where computer become ubiquitous. So this is where we need to questions, can all this HMD becomes ubiquitous and mobile so that we can live in a mixed reality, provided the network can support this kind of activities. Of course, we can argue, you know, with the location detections and location awareness, there are concerns of privacy, surveillance, but we do acknowledge the dystopian potential for government programs that might track and store personal GPS data. But what I'm discussing right now here, we are asking for a more open attitude and think of what sort of potential can be offered by this sort of technology, right? Not exclusively distincting between the cyber as well as the reality, but looking at the middle grounds where both can be combined, right? So the future is in our hands. What sort of lifestyle that we want to choose, either, you know, completely immersive in a world, and then we have to question ourselves again, would we be able to discard our physical reality? Are we still able to move? Not to forget, there are other types of technologies that's being developed, like drones, smart cities, self-driving cars in the smart cities, and so on. Yeah. So when we talk about moving in the city, also not to forget other types of agents that's moving, including other species like plants, insects, birds, and so on. So I'll just end by showing these projects by interactive architecture labs in UCL, University College London. They are envisioning a cybernetic sphere that's moving in a real city. And there's a plant in this the sphere, and the plants, there are artificial intelligence programs for the plants to look for resources like water, the best spots for them to get the sunlight in order for them to survive or flourish. So I'm just using this to envision there could be a possibility where we can combine, you know, metaverse activities together with physical objects that is actually moving around us. So I will just conclude with a statement that's saying we need to know how we move, also how the world moving. Yeah, and with all this locative technology, is also inculcating a new epistemology where the machines could be telling and giving us suggestions when to move, as well as when to move, as well as where to go. Right. So the choice is ours, whether we want to be zoophilia, meaning living in the earth, or living in a metaverse. Right. So we need to study and examine the new way for us to perform our life right now with this new development, and as we are also disintegrated as body informations. Yeah, when we are living in metaverse, we are living as a representation, as a data. All right. So, what kind of new lifestyles is it going to be? Is going to emerge, right? From this new development. Of course, a metaverse is proposed as an expansion to existing internet technology. As I mentioned again, is the development of metaverse is solely dependent on VR technology, and there is a limitation right now. If it can overcome the limitation in terms of adoptions, everybody can have an access to HMD, then perhaps it will be a cyber utopia. And again, in this utopia, we are talking about a middle grounds where both virtual and physical world will have to be combined. With that, I end my presentation here. I hope it's not too boring.
Thank you for your presentation, The Moving City. I have one personal question.
Sure.
In order to move from one city to another city, I think the networking is not sufficient to move from one to another, right? So
Yeah.
I just want to listen to your personal opinion about the infrastructure of computer networking. So is there any your opinion? So
yes. Correct. I understand. I think there are still a lot of problems unresolved, especially in regards to real world problems like affordability, accessibility, the digital gaps between different generation and different segment of people in the society, whether it is internet networks infrastructure or the automobile infrastructure. There's always a segregation of class. The class of people who can access, for example, if you can afford to buy an air ticket, then you can travel from one country to another. There's also people who cannot afford to buy an air ticket and their movement is rather limited, right? So they cannot travel out of the country or maybe even out of their city because of accessibility. I think the same things happen here as well. We can be very idealistic. I mean, at the moment in the pandemic, because I'm also teaching in the university, we thought, virtual and online would be the best platforms when people cannot move and station at home. But there's also real problems that we are facing right now where there are students who are living in remote places. They have limited internet access, right? So even though the internet promise imaginative mobility, you can travel without moving, but again, there are still real physical problems that the society are facing. So same goes to metaverse as well, that heavily dependent on VR tools, HMD, all these Google classes. For people who don't have access, basically they are excluded from this utopia world that we are building. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions.
혹시 다른 질문 있으신가요? 예, 없으면 발표 마치겠습니다. Thank you for your
All right.
presentation. Thank you.
So if there's any further questions, you can contact me at my email address, my working email address.
Okay.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for the sessions and the opportunity.
Yeah.